This is the House of Andrea. I'm Andrea Lee Matthews, an artist, photographer, and clairvoyant medium. And in this podcast, we explore what it really means to thrive as a soul having a human experience. How to connect with our energy, transcend those edges and boundaries that we create for ourselves, and open to the full spectrum of who we are. If you're ready to see yourself differently, to sense more deeply, and to expand into more of who you are, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode. We are, as of today, moving into the podcast's brand new format, The House of Andrea. This week has been huge, honestly, in anticipation of this new shift. There's been so much that has cracked me open, and I thought I want to share some of these things because there was some really powerful medicine in here this week that I've had to work through. The first thing that I want to share is that I made the decision when we were switching over to this new podcast format that I wanted to potentially start running a YouTube channel for this podcast. So to start to show up on video as well. And so I searched around the local area and found a couple of podcasting studios here in Melbourne, and I actually booked one for Friday, just gone. And I've been thinking about it all week, kind of really contemplating, like, what is it that I really want to shift into around this new iteration of this podcast? And I contemplated it, and I wrote lots of things down. And in the morning, on Friday morning, I went for a beautiful walk around, and some incredible insight just started to drop into my field. And I started noting that down, thinking like, yes, I'm going to get into the studio later this afternoon, and I'm going to start recording for the very first time with a live video feed. And can I tell you, it went terribly. I hate saying that because we never, ever, ever want to fail, but it went terribly. I got to the studio, and it's absolutely no shade on the studio at all. It was a professionally set up space. The people there were lovely. The gentleman helped me set everything up, but there was something that happened between the morning when I was contemplating all of the things that I wanted to pour into the episode and how I was going to show up. There was so much unraveling of me that happened over those hours between that morning walk and getting into the studio that just derailed everything. So by the time I got to the studio and the cameras got switched on, the video feeds were set up, it was a really tight, small, dark space. The lighting was a little bit off. There were just a few subtle things that kind of chipped away little bits of the confidence that I was feeling coming into this. And of course, there is safety that's created when you do something that's really familiar. So we've been running the Bold Brave Woman project for 3 months now, and this episode marks episode number 13. And so there has been a certain level of comfort, familiarity that I have built around the podcast, that it makes it really easy for me to show up now in my favorite little studio spot to record these audio-based episodes. And they feel joyful and they feel light. But when I stepped into the studio on Friday, and all of a sudden there was a 3-camera setup and spotlights on the chair when I was sitting. And I typically don't script my episodes because I want them to come through more conversationally and more organically. It just threw me out because all of a sudden I had gone from having this beautiful space where I just speak and channel and share and connect with you to all of a sudden just subtly flipping into this performative, presentable type energy. And it's so interesting that this happened because I used to work with clients on helping them get out of that performative mode. Like everything that I taught at the time was about authenticity and voice and expression and being in your body. And it is always so fascinating when the things that we know, that we talk about, that we teach, we get into situations and we just forget our medicine. We forget all of our medicine, all of our advice, all of our tools, and it triggers some of those raw things within ourselves that then come to the surface, and we're grappling with those. We're grappling with our feelings of insecurity, of not enoughness, that just stilts us and pops these little blocks and difficulties in our way that it makes it hard to just show up and be authentic. And so I was sitting there, and it took me, no word of a lie, for the first 33 minutes of that 1 hour booking, with the video feeds running and the microphones on, and me sitting alone in this dark room, staring into these cameras, 33 minutes. And all I could do was say, hello and welcome back to the podcast, like 25 times, because every time I said it, I was like, no, it's not welcome back, because it's the new format, and oh, I looked weird when I said that, and oh, that felt strange, or oh, what do I say next? Like, it was wild, guys. Like, for 33 minutes, I could not get the content out. And there was just so many other things. Like, the room that I was in wasn't soundproofed from the outside, but the mics were soundproofed. So I could hear people outside. I could hear street noise. I could hear fire truck noises, people just coming and going on the street out the front, even though the microphones weren't picking that up. And the guy was like, yeah, don't worry about it. The microphones can't hear it, so just ignore it. It was all of a sudden I'm sitting in there trying to get the opening line right. And that's all I could hear. It was wild. And at the 33-minute mark, I was like, well, I have two choices. I can either just bail and be like, this is not for me. Creating this podcast into a YouTube channel, like, it's not my bag. Or I could just talk about how uncomfortable I am right now. And so I spent the remaining 27 minutes recording an episode around how uncomfortable it is to just sit in a darkened room and record a podcast with cameras on you. And that's how I spent the very first hour of booking and recording in a video podcast studio. But what I think is really interesting is the reasons why I thought I had to be there in the first place. And side note, this episode that you're listening to now is not that episode. It's not the one that I recorded in the studio. The audio actually turned out to not be great. And I will probably release that episode as a B-side, maybe down the track, we'll see. But what was really interesting was the types of thoughts and feelings that were going on in my mind and what they were indicating in terms of some of those old patterns and old conditionings that were playing out for me. And one of the things that was really interesting is that at some point I had convinced myself that I had to have a YouTube channel and I had to have this podcast in a talking to camera video format. And this got me thinking, because we do this all the time. We make these situations factual. Like this idea that I have to have a YouTube channel, when I look at it from the external zoomed out perspective, it's like, why? Why is that? Where have I picked that up? Why have I made that real and gospel and true? And why am I measuring myself and my value in this space against whether I have a YouTube channel or not? Like, when we really zoom out and look at ourselves, our energy, our lives, what we're here to do, why is it that all of a sudden is so important that I have this YouTube channel? And it's interesting because I was thinking about, how did this come about for me, that this became a deep-rooted belief, and without it, the podcast wasn't going to be successful. And I think it's come from a couple of different places. One is a lot of experts will tell you, and of course there's lots of data and research and statistics around that says those podcasts with a video feed, it taps into two markets. So you've got your YouTube market and your podcast market. Amazing. It's just an additional exposure tool. I understand that, and that is great, particularly if your content leans towards a YouTube channel and it's interesting to watch the person speaking and so on and so forth. And the second thing I'd realized is that this had come about in my mind because there's this energy of I need to be seen as an expert or as a professional to be taken seriously. And this is a deeper problematic energy. To feel like you have to show up on a video feed and have a YouTube channel to be taken seriously, that's something different. That comes down to a self-worth issue. And so it was really interesting that I'm sitting in this podcast studio, feeling all these feelings, deciding to push through. And at the end of the session, when I hit stop and I walked out, I felt like an absolute failure because I'm a trained actor. I'm used to being on camera. I'm used to being on screens and stages. I know how to deliver a podcast. I know how to talk articulately and clearly. I must be a failure. All of a sudden, I just started feeling those feelings of failure, of I'm not good enough. Who was I to think that I could even do this? I thought that I had skills of being on camera. I clearly don't. All of these familiar narratives started to play out. And what can happen is those narratives can run away with us. And all of a sudden, we feel depressed. We feel sad. We start to believe them. We start to feel them as integrated into who we are. But really what it was doing was just showing me some things that needed to be healed, some things that were ready to shift, because I don't want to measure my value, and I don't want you to measure your value against whether you have a YouTube channel or whether you're showing up on social media or whether you have videos or not. Your value and your medicine for this world through your work, through just being you, goes far beyond whether you're showing up in an Instagram or YouTube channel or not. The beautiful opportunity here for me was that I could start to unpick where I have attached meaning to things that are not really real. Like creating meaning around YouTube equals this, or Instagram equals this, or a following equals this, because that's something else that's been swirling around a little bit this week. I've recently found out that my Facebook account, it's been marked as a spammy account from something that happened 2 years ago that wasn't even my fault. But my account's being penalized and I'm going to have to start over, which is fine. Like I've made peace with that and I'm excited to start something fresh and new. But throughout the course of this week, I had this internal debate with myself that, well, if this feeling, it wasn't even a debate, it was this feeling and this internalization of, well, if the algorithm doesn't think my content is interesting, my art is interesting, if it's not being seen by anyone, does it even have any value? Is it even any importance? In assigning meaning to that, it's like, okay, it's time to just stop and strip back to what's actually important. And starting to realize that just showing up in my authentic, full expression in the way that makes sense to me on the channels that bring me joy is so much more valuable to the world than me trying to ascribe to these models of, well, if you're not on this at this level, then you're nothing. There are so many incredible people throughout the world who have just left such amazing marks and medicine and art and discoveries into the world without these channels that we're now elevating up as king. And I had a really great conversation with a friend of mine this morning. Shout out to Jace if he's listening. But I was explaining to him, I'm like, somehow I've made YouTube the all-important part of my strategy, or the all-important thing. Or somehow I've made Instagram the all important thing. And I feel like I'm a victim of blah, blah, blah. Like just all of this outdated language. And he just goes to me, he's like, I've got one word for you, Andrea. And I'm like, what's that? He goes, Banksy. And I just laughed. I was like, oh, you're right. Banksy is this amazing artist. If you don't know, definitely look them up. It's Banksy. But Banksy is a street stencil artist that has been around for decades now, and they're anonymous. And nobody knows what they look like, nobody knows their identity, but their art is profound and their art is prolific. And I just thought it was so interesting. Obviously, Jason was not telling me to become Banksy, but was making a really strong point in that we don't have to show up in the ways that we think we have to show up. We don't have to show up looking perfect, staring down the barrel of a camera and presenting something in a certain way if it's not our vibe, if it's not for us or encapsulating our magic. If it's not our style, then we don't have to do it. There are so many other pathways and ways, and it's so much more important for us to show up in the way that we sparkle and we shine and we just feel at ease. So I decided today to just go down to the usual place where I record these voice-only episodes and re-record the first episode for this new iteration of the House of Andrea, because this is where I'm most in my power and connection to my expression. This is where I can just bring in what needs to be said to share with you in the moment as it flows through and as it happens, and it just feels so easeful. And it feels so much more authentic than me worrying about how I'm sitting and how I'm looking and all of those things. And yes, of course, they can be trained. I have trained so many people in those techniques, which is wild. You'd think that I would be perfect at it, but these are the things when we're dealing with our own conditioning. They sometimes pop up and present new challenges to us to have to work through, and it's such a gift. But right now, the most powerful identity and archetype and expression that I want to be in is art first, is message first, is channeled first. And for me right now, that is in the creative process of creating art, of painting, of doing all of my mixed media stuff. That is in the magic of sitting here and just expressing what needs to be expressed, sharing, channeling, listening, just sharing this with you in conversation. That is the magic right now for me. And I'm deciding to make that enough. And that gets to be enough. And we know that that is enough. Deep down in our souls, we know that that is enough. We just add in all these extra layers of expectation and judgment over the top of that makes us act in different ways. Makes us feel like we need to do things differently. But it starts to dilute who we are. And it means we don't show up as authentically as we could, because we're just trying to fit the norms or execute perfect marketing strategies based on what's worked for others. And here's the thing. Sometimes things are difficult because we're new at them. And it is simply a moment of growth where we're not good at something. We need to practice it. We need to allow the skill to develop over time. That feels very different to showing up and something being difficult because it's misaligned. They might sound like they would feel the same, but they actually don't. The energy of it is very subtle and very different. And you'll feel this in your body. When you show up to something, say you want to learn a new skill like painting, right? And you show up and you've got your paintbrushes and your paint and everything's set out there, and you're going through the motions of dipping the paint and applying it to the paper, and it keeps coming out wrong. That can be a really frustrating process. But there is a feeling that surrounds that is just like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is hard. I just don't have the skills. Like, that is a very different, equally frustrating, but different feeling to, I feel like I'm showing up and doing this painting because my mom or my dad is a painter, and there's a belief that I have within me that I should be a painter too, but this just feels like I'm not interested. I don't want to do this. I'm doing this because of expectation or because I have to. That is a very different energy to, I just don't know what I'm doing. I'm lost. I'm out of my depth. This doesn't feel good because I don't understand. You can feel that, right? Like they're very different energies. And I'm realizing that with this video podcasting pressure, it was very much the second one, where I'm like, I should be here. This is what all good, successful podcasters do. This is what I have to do to get my name out there and to be famous and rah, 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 rah. Like all of this internal dialogue that I've picked up and made gospel. That is very different to, I'm just uncomfortable in front of the camera, because I'm not uncomfortable in front of a camera. I can be in front of a camera easily in so many other contexts. But when it came to the podcast, it was such a subtle difference. But it wasn't until I got into the studio and put myself into the situation that I realized that. And this is where pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone can be so powerful. Like, I am so grateful that I was brave enough to book the studio, to pay the investment. You know, here in Australia, booking spaces in podcast studios, it's expensive. But I'm so grateful to myself that I was willing to make the investment, to sit there for 33 minutes and not be able to get past the opening couple of sentences feeling like a complete failure. Like, I'm so grateful for that experience, for me to be able to feel the energy and know the difference between what is just new and what is misaligned. And this can be so helpful to just pause and think about if there's something in your life at the moment, especially something new or something that your soul is calling you to do, and it's feeling really difficult. Feel into that difficulty. Go into the energy of it, the emotion of it, and just allow yourself to go under it. It's like, visualize yourself ducking underneath the discomfort and saying, is this just because it's new? And I have a perfection streak, or I like to do things that come easy to me because it's safer and I don't have to put myself out there. Like, is this energy discomfort because this is new and I don't know what I'm doing? Or underneath that energy, is it because I know I'm trying to be someone that I'm not for circumstantial or external reasons? And this is what this opportunity is showing me. And so what I've decided to do now that I have some awareness around this energy is not put this podcast into an official YouTube channel. Like, I'm not going to record these episodes speaking directly into the lens of the camera, perfectly articulate, to just have a YouTube channel. Like, I'm not going to do it. That is not the purpose of this podcast. This podcast is all about having real conversations. And right now, the way that I can do that is just by doing it the way that I've been doing it and pouring everything that I am into it. I might take the audio and put some visuals over it just so that I can upload it to YouTube, so that it is accessible for those that prefer that as a channel. And I might even use my art and some of my AI animation stuff to make those images really beautiful to look at or glance at as you're listening. But I'm not going to try and contort myself to be something that I don't really want to. I'm going to be a little bit Banksy-esque, which I don't mind. And I've also decided that instead of battling this terrible health score and these old accounts that I have across Facebook and Instagram, I'm just going to close them. I'm just going to close them and start a couple of brand new, independent, fresh feeds. One that is just sharing all of my beautiful art and all of the things that are coming through me in terms of creativity, in terms of expression, in terms of the channeled messages that need to be shared. And I'm going to have a separate feed because there's some AI animation stuff that I want to do with some inspirational or with some activating type energy over the top. And I'm going to create that because I'm listening to what my soul is telling me. And this is what's so important. So often we get into our head around executing strategy, particularly if we're following interesting mentors or people online who are like, I did this and it made me $1 million, or here's my 5-step guaranteed plan that I would do to build my business from scratch again, or here's what works in terms of digital products, or this or that, this or that. It's so easy for us to listen and follow their instructions to a T, but we have to have discernment around which of those things are great from a strategic perspective to get me where I want to go in alignment with who I am and how I want to show up. There's been so many Instagram mentors and courses and things that I have signed up for to increase my skills. Again, that discomfort around skills, that I didn't know how it works. And so I had that discomfort because I didn't understand how the platform worked and the best types of performing content. But I have signed up to those courses and tried to execute them A to Z exactly as they recommended, with their trending audio, with their type of B-roll format, to film it exactly. And it was really difficult because I didn't want to show up in that way, not out of fear of being seen, but just because it's not my vibe. I'm realizing that understanding our vibe is such an important piece. We usually put ourselves to the side or to the back. We think of ourselves as secondary to what is right or how it should be. But really understanding our vibe, how we show up, how we shine is so, so important. And filming B-roll or, doing certain actions or mouthing trending audio, that is brilliant for so many people whose vibe matches that. But when I did it, it felt performative. It felt fake. And so a lot of the advice around how to make your reels go viral or show up a certain way on social media, it didn't apply at the end of the day because it's not my vibe. It's not my energy. It's not how I thrive. I thrive by making art and bringing down little poetic pieces of captions to go over that art to help activate something within whoever is going to see that. Like, that's where I thrive. I love recording the podcasts in this way, in this intimate moment, just speaking to you and recording it that way, like a camera in my face, just so that you can see how good I look. Wink, wink. It's not helpful. It's not my vibe. And the hardest part of this is giving ourselves permission to just be, accept, love our vibe, how we are, who we are, our energy, and keep reassuring ourselves that it's enough. Over this last week, so many personally deep, triggering things have happened. It's been a wild roller coaster this week. I've had trauma release work done on my body, which has just had these massive outpourings of grief and tears. There were things that haven't worked out that I was really hoping would work out, and there was other things that have worked out but are taking me in a different direction. It's just been a roller coaster of a week, and so it's so easy for ourselves to lose ourselves in these moments when we're torn in different directions, when we're feeling all the feels, when we go to show up and follow the expert advice based on who we think we should be, and then it fails. It can be really heavy. And so it's so important for us to just have this place within ourselves that we can come back to and be like, I feel most myself when I'm doing this in this way. I feel most myself when I am connecting with people like this. Like, for me, I'm realizing that I love deep conversation one-on-one. And I think this is why I love podcasting, because it's just me and you at the kitchen table having a cup of tea, having a chat. That's what I see us doing when I'm recording this. Whereas you put me in a massive, loud, noisy environment with a big group, and I'm having to try and hold multiple containers of space with multiple individuals all at once, with noise and other stuff coming in, like, I don't love that as much. I can definitely do it and adapt to it, but it's not my vibe. It's not where I thrive. And so really understanding these nuances of our power, of how we show up, are so beneficial because it helps us determine how we want to exist in the world, particularly if we have something that we want to do that is in service of others or is to be in the public arena where we need to be present and ourselves and showing up more and more and more. Understanding who we are and I keep using the word vibe, but our energy, our essence, where we feel most at ease. Understanding that is so powerful because then we can craft the channels and the ways that make the most sense. And the thing that always plays on my mind, and you might be questioning it too, is like, but what if we go against the strategy of the experts? Does that mean we're going to fail? Or does that mean that our stuff isn't going to perform as well as if we were to execute the proven popular strategy? And it's such a common question or contemplation that we can battle. But as I get deeper into this work and I experiment with more things and start to really play with the energetics behind showing up in authenticity and being who we are here to be, I'm realizing that there are an infinite amount of ways for us to be successful. There are an infinite amount of ways in which we can connect to others. It's just that there are some particular strategies that get elevated up as being the ones for a certain characteristic or mainstream type of person, but they don't apply to everyone. And just because they don't apply to those few that it doesn't apply to, doesn't mean that we can't be successful. Doesn't mean that we can't be in our magic. We just have to find the way to show up that is in our essence. Because when we are in our power, when we are in our essence, our work, our message gets amplified because it's magnetic. And this is the thing that I'm realizing is the most important, is our magnetism. And magnetism comes from authenticity. It comes from believing in ourselves, trusting ourselves, that we are enough. Because as soon as we tell ourselves that we're enough, it creates this frequency of trust. It's like a pulsing that people feel. When someone walks into the room and they are not just confident, because confident is definitely valuable and powerful, but when they are in their essence, when they are in their who-ness, the who-ness of who they are, that is a whole different level of frequency. And you'll know this. You will have experienced this so many times where someone walks into the room and they know who they are and they love who they are and they just emanate this self-love, this kindness, this power, this authenticity. And I'm not talking about fake confidence or bravado or ego-led energy. I'm talking about oneness and selfness. This magnetism that radiates, and you can't help but want to go over and be around them or ask them questions or hear what they have to say. It's like they pull you in, and that's because they're connecting with you on a certain frequency. There's a piece within you, a unique piece within you that recognizes the piece within them that wants to connect on that level. And so you get drawn in, you become curious, you ask questions, you want to be around them. That is where the power is. And we can only get to that power by understanding who we are and what is easeful, what is in alignment, what is perfect for us to show up in that frequency, and then be brave enough to do it. Be brave enough to say, thank you. I hear that strategy. I see that that's worked. I can see that that's a popular approach to take. But I can feel in my bones that that is not aligned. I'm going to go down this pathway instead because this is going to be the fire within my soul that's going to increase my magnetism. That is what is the most important piece in showing up in who we are. And that's what the House of Andrea, I'm realizing, is about. It's about accepting my vibe and accepting who you are, so that we can show up in our own authenticity, in our own power, become our own houses of the essence of who we are. And that's why when I reflected over the weekend about this whole podcast studio failure and YouTube channel and pressure to show up on certain social media in a certain way and have X amount of followers, I was like, oh, none of that is necessary, because what I need to do is come back to the magnetism that is me and own that and allow that to be enough. Allow the way that I podcast to be enough, and trust that you and whoever else needs to find this and connect with me, we will be here. We will be in this conversation together because it's meant to be, and allow that medicine to be enough in the world. So if you're listening to this and you are battling any kind of assumption around, oh, I need to do something a certain way, or I need to play in a certain way, or be, or show up, or do my job in a certain way because that is either the expectation or what's worked for someone else in the past, take the parts that are for you there. Take the parts that align, that you vibe with, that feel really good, and just let the rest go and do it your way. Because it's amazing how the universe starts to open doors and opportunities where we step into that authenticity. Even this week, even amongst all of the heaviness, there have been some mind-blowing, incredible opportunities that have come through the door that are unfolding, and I'll share those as they start to develop. But there's been some mind-blowing opportunities just from being brave enough to show up in a space as me, not pretending to be anything else. And I just said yes. Like, I don't even know why, but in my soul I was like, just say yes. That's the power of showing up in our vibe, in who we are, and just allowing ourselves to go on the journey of discovery of where we're meant to go. Because your soul will always, 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 always keep directing you towards the magic that you're here for. I love the saying, if it's meant for you, it'll find you. I believe that to my core, even in those moments where you feel lost, where it feels dark, where it feels heavy, where you just feel like you can't go on, or you don't know what you want, you don't know who you are. Even in those moments, there is medicine there. There is a part of your soul that is speaking to you to clear out a whole bunch of stuff so that what is meant for you can find you, because it will find you. It's not, and I even want to reframe that. It's not can find you. It's that it will find you. It just makes it easier because you're clearing the stuff out of the way. So I'm really excited to see how this new space unfolds, this new energy of the House of Andrea. I'm going to be varying some of the podcast types as well. I might even do some walking episodes, because some of the most incredible transmissions drop in when I'm in conversation with spirit, when my body is moving, particularly when I'm walking in nature. So I'm going to experiment with a few different formats around walking episodes. I also got given this vision, and I don't know what format it's going to take yet, but I'm really excited to see what happens. But I'm thinking of having a episode format where you can see me being in conversation with spirit. So rather than talking to you like I love to do in these particular episodes, I am going to do some live conversation with spirit type episodes where I'm posing questions to them and then receiving and verbalizing the responses, so you can hear what it looks like to be in conversation and receive channeling live. Look, they might be interesting, they might not be, but we have to try, right? We have to try. So I'm going to do that as well. And of course, I'm going to be creating the YouTube channel to have these audios available there, using some of the graphics of my AI animations and my art and my original pieces as well, just to add this beautiful visual layer as well. If you prefer to listen on YouTube, the links to all of these things will be in the show notes. And also, starting from today, the brand new fresh Instagram feeds. I'm not entirely sure of the handles as I am recording this, but those brand new handles will be in the show notes. So please check them out. Follow me. I'm so grateful for you to be here. I'd love to connect with you, and your support, honestly, your support in being here and listening and tuning in It really does mean the world to me, and I can't wait to go on this journey together. So much is unfolding. It's been 3 months since we started this process, and it feels like that was a lifetime ago. Realizing that I'd sleepwalked myself into a life that wasn't mine, and the original YouTube failing completely. It has been 3 months, but an entire lifetime has been lived of growth and expansion over that time, and completely transitioning into this new artist era. It is amazing and always blows my mind in retrospect just how much of our lives we can shift in such a short amount of time, how we can quantum jump from where we are to that next chapter when we start giving ourselves permission to come back to ourselves and be authentic to ourselves. It is amazing what we can achieve, even in those moments where we feel like we have no idea what we're doing. The magic is still happening, and we're still coming home to that even truer version of ourselves. So I love you. I cannot wait to see you in the next episode and go on this journey with you. Have a beautiful day, and I will see you very soon. If you're not in there yet and you want to get into the private Telegram space where all of these audios drop every day, as well as all the art, the conversation, and the behind the scenes, go to www.andrealeematthews.com/private podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram at Andrea Lee Matthews, and you can find more about me and all of my work at andrealeematthews.com. I'll see you in the next transmission.